Hello children. In the last two sections, you have learnt what political parties are, how they are structured, their functions, necessity, national parties and state parties. You have also learnt about the 7 national parties of India. In this section, we will focus on the following. 1. Challenges to political parties. 2. Legal measures taken to reform political parties, and 3. Suggestions to reform political parties. By the end of this section, you should be able to achieve the following objectives. Analyze various challenges that political parties face. Legal measures taken to reform political parties. Identify the challenges hidden in these legal measures taken. Suggestions given to reform political parties. You should also be able to give your suggestions to reform political parties. The first challenge that we can identify is lack of internal democracy. Recall, in the lesson Power Sharing, we have learnt that decision-making power should be shared with as many social groups and as many people as possible. Power sharing is the heart and spirit of democracy. It is ironic to observe that the very face of democracy, political parties, do not follow power sharing. In most political parties, power remains in the hands of a few top leaders, who do not consult ordinary members. Membership registers are not maintained. Even if they do, those members of the party do not have a chance to take part in the decision-making process. They are not consulted before taking a decision. Ordinary members have no information about the internal working of the party. Thus, the working of political parties goes against the principle of power sharing.
The second challenge is dynastic succession. This is related to the first challenge. If the first is the challenge of concentration of power in the hands of a few, then the challenge of dynastic succession is concentration of power in the hands of a few who belong to a family. Top positions of a party are reserved for only family members or those who are very close to them. These members may not be qualified or have the ability to hold their positions. They may favor people who are close to them. Honest and capable party workers may not get a chance to go to the high position. They may be reluctant to remain in the party. There is an interesting story behind this Fiat car. This car belonged to India's erstwhile Prime Minister, Lal Bahadur Shastri. The Prime Minister didn't have a car. His family members had been pestering him to buy one. He told his secretary to find out how much a Fiat car cost. The price was found to be 12,000 rupees. But Shastri had only 7,000 rupees in the bank. He applied to PNB Bank for a loan of 5,000 rupees, which was sanctioned in less than 2 hours. The Prime Minister met with an unfortunate death when he was in Tashkent to sign an important agreement. After his death, his wife repaid the car loan with the pension she received. Such were the humble and honest politicians India had. Of course, there are politicians of that kind even now, but only a few. The next challenge that we can identify is money power and muscle power. Democracies all over the world face this challenge. The growing influence of money and muscle power worries Democrats all over the world. This challenge becomes more evident during elections. Tickets are given mostly to those candidates who have a lot of money or who can raise a lot of money. People with criminal backgrounds are also given tickets if they stand a chance to win elections. Business houses liberally donate to political parties. When in power, these parties are obliged to make policy changes favoring them. Look at these 2 reports. Gone are the days when khadi-clad leaders from the grassroots with little money on them could enter parliament. These days most members of the parliament may still wear simple khadi, but they are certainly not short of money. As many as 440 of 536 MPs of the Lok Sabha are Crore-patis. Another disturbing trend is the growing influence of criminals in Indian politics. Nearly 50% of the present Lok Sabha members have criminal cases against them. This is true for all democratic countries of the world. Naturally, Democrats all over the world are worried about such developments. The fourth challenge is lack of meaningful choice. Most parties of the world fail to offer meaningful choice. There is little ideological difference between them. For example, liberals and conservatives in Britain agree on most things. They differ only the ways to achieve them. Even in India, economic policies of BJP and INC are mostly the same. When political parties fail to offer meaningful choice, then the people may follow leaders. This gives rise to one more challenge. That is defection, because these leaders keep hopping from party to party. The last challenge that we can discuss is defection. Leaders frequently changing from one party to another is called defection. There is no respect for party ideology. They change parties either for money or for power. There are people who blindly follow them too. Let's see how defection is bad for democracy. Suppose there is a state with 200 MLA seats. Suppose Party A gets 110 seats and Party B gets 90 seats. Party A rules the state and Party B sits in the opposition. Suppose 20 MLAs of the ruling party defect to Party B. As 20 MLAs of Party A defect to Party B, it is reduced to minority. Party B becomes the majority party. Party B rules the state and Party A sits in the opposition. Look what has happened in this case. People have voted Party A to power, but Party B ends up enjoying power. All because of defection. Challenges can be faced if parties are reformed. Parties can be reformed only if they are willing to reform. Are political parties willing to reform? If they are willing, what's preventing them? If they are not willing, is it possible to reform them at all? The present set of politicians can be replaced with the new ones, but there is no guarantee that they don't become corrupt over time. Listen to this part of the novel called Animal Farm, authored by George Orwell. Though it is a political satire of the Russian Revolution, it applies to democracy too. Once, animals rebelled against humans and established their rule. They called their country Animal Farm. Pigs became the rulers eventually. A new constitution came into being. One of the provisions read, "All animals are equal." Milk cans began to disappear over time. Piglets began to become fatter and fatter day by day. When it was known to all animals, pigs designed a plan. The constitution was amended, including the provision that stated that all animals were equal. It read, "All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal." After all, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It is possible to reform political parties by binding them by legal constitutional changes. They can be effective only if the political parties accept them. Let's discuss some of the legal measures taken to reform political parties. Anti-defection law is one of the legal measures taken to reform political parties. Let's go back to the example taken of defection. You know that 20 MLAs defect to Party B from Party A, enabling Party B to come to power, even as people voted Party A to power. This is bad politics. As per the anti-defection law, if a sitting MLA or MP defects, then she or he loses membership to the House. The Election Commission holds by-election in her or his constituency. In this example, 20 MLAs who defect from Party A to Party B cease to be MLAs. By-elections will be held in 20 constituencies. Let's analyze how effective this anti-defection law is. This measure has brought down defection to some extent. But it has drawbacks too. Defection before elections cannot be curtailed. If you follow any general election keenly, you will observe many leaders, MLAs and MPs indulge in large-scale defection. Secondly, this law has made any dissent even more difficult. Voice of disapproval can't be raised by MLAs or MPs. They may be thrown out of the party or they may not be allowed to contest the next election. Thirdly, there are some leaders who do not care if they lose membership to the House. They are confident that the people would anyway vote for them irrespective of the party they contest from. Filing affidavits is the second legal measure taken to reform political parties. An affidavit is a statement of truth made on a stamped paper. Every candidate must file an affidavit that reveals the value of all movable and immovable property, and the criminal cases pending against him or her, the spouse and the children. This measure is taken to reduce money power and criminalization of politics. Again, this legal measure is not devoid of any drawbacks. The major drawback is that there is no mechanism to find out whether the affidavit actually states true facts or otherwise. The third measure is filing IT returns and holding organizational elections. Every political party must file income tax returns. Parties should hold elections to fill up high positions. Even this measure has drawbacks. IT returns filed by the political parties cannot be disputed. You probably know that the only source of income of political parties is donations. You can't file RTI application to find out how much donation every party gets. Political parties have kept themselves away from the ambit of the RTI. Secondly, organizational elections are held for the name's sake. Everything is decided beforehand. Thus, every legal measure taken has its own drawbacks. Legal measures taken to reform political parties are effective but slightly. Do you agree with the statement? Recently, a few more measures are taken to reform political parties, particularly to reduce money power and muscle power. A person contesting election must publish value of his assets and criminal cases pending, in newspapers and news channels frequently. If a politician is found guilty even by a lower court of law, she or he cannot contest elections for 6 years. Electoral bonds are introduced to reduce money power in politics. A few suggestions have been given to reform political parties, but they have not been fully accepted by them. The first suggestion is that the political parties should function as meaningful institutions. A law should be made to regulate the internal affairs of the party. Parties should have their own constitution. Differences of opinion should be sorted out based on it. Parties should maintain register of members. Open elections should be held to elect top leaders. Some of these suggestions aren't followed by parties. The second suggestion given is state-funded elections. It is suggested that the government should take care of election expenditures of political parties. Parties can be given cash or kind like petrol, stationery etc. How much should a party get can be decided based on its performance in the previous elections. Parties have not accepted this suggestion either. The next suggestion given is to increase participation of women in politics. It is suggested that political parties should give at least 1/3 tickets to women. Except Biju Janata Dal of Odisha, none other political parties have accepted this suggestion. Over-regulation of political parties can be counterproductive. This would force parties to cheat the laws. People, media and pressure groups have major responsibility in reforming politics. People can put pressure on political parties. This can be done through petitions, publicity and agitations. If political parties feel that they would lose public support by not taking up reforms, they will become more serious about reforms. The problem of bad politics can be solved by more and better politics. Political parties can improve if those who want this join political parties. The quality of democracy depends on the degree of public participation. Mere criticism without active participation will not yield good results. Thus individuals like us have a greater responsibility in reforming politics in general and political parties in particular. That's the end of the lesson, Political Parties.